Welcome to It's Only Halftime, where we help men turn their second half into their best half by raising the standard for men's health and performance as we age. My name is Dr. Andreas. I'm a licensed chiropractic physician certified in functional medicine with a BS in health and exercise science, a 3 time Ironman triathlete, and a natural masters men's physique competitor who's overcome an autoimmune disease and even low testosterone without a single medication, injection, pellet, or cream. This channel exists to raise the bar, to cut through the noise and challenge outdated thinking and bring you real conversations, expert interviews, and proven strategies to help you become a peak performance man naturally whenever possible. This channel is brought to you by the Peak Performance Protocol found at itsonlyhalftime.com and our proven physician grade supplements at iohnutrition.com. I do this work because far too many men are overweight, out of shape, and over medicated. And as a result, they're dying far too young. And I don't want you to be one of them. If you're ready to reject the narrative, stop accepting decline, and raise your standards, this channel is for you. Make sure you subscribe. Now, let's get started with today's conversation. Well, today I have a very special guest with me who has become not only an invaluable client, but a dear friend, someone that I enjoy playing around the golf with and even just hanging out with. We have transformed his life, his health, and his fitness in every way imaginable. And today's story is going to really inspire you. So I want to welcome you, our guest today. His name is Todd Parker. He's a certified financial planner, wealth manager with Parker Mathis Wealth Advisors. He has offices in Sarasota, Florida, and in Central Illinois. I want to welcome Todd Parker.
Thank you, buddy. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. And I know we got a lot of things we're going to be covering about your own journey with your own health, your wellness, your weight, your fitness, and the things that you've experienced. And you're going to be sharing, I know, a lot of the success that you've had, what's been different, how you've been able to overcome some of the health challenges that you have, and finally achieve a level of fitness that's really gaining the attention of your peers, your fellow members at your golf club as well. And so before we jump into some of that, just tell us a little bit about your background, where you were before we met, how we got started.
Okay. So, looking back, when I was younger, I was very athletic, very active. And as I, started the family situation, met my wife, we started having children. And I came from a family of very little financial resources and little to no values around professional education. It was very much about graduate high school, go get a job. But my wife did not. She came from a very different set of values and background. And young in our marriage, she had received a fairly major promotion, and she was in the military. And as we talked about it, we talked about what that meant for our family, and she was ready to go get a bigger house, as a lot of wives are in that situation, especially with the growing family. And she said, although I'm ready to go get a bigger house, you know, if you're going to go to college, this is the time to do it. Like, we're doing well. I've got the insurance all figured out. We could downsize our home instead of going to buy a bigger home. And you could go to college. And I think that's the right decision for you. So we did that. We took that risk, and things kind of started to change from there as far as health and wellness.
Yeah. So talk about that because, and I know a little bit, we've obviously talked about this in the past because, this becomes a noble, somewhat badge of honor. And that is, we sacrifice as men, our health for career, family, and success. And I know you were building a young family. Talk a little bit about what that was like for you and how you went from being that athlete to, where you were before we got started.
Yeah, yeah. So happy to share. So, doing that type of a move, especially as a young family, and especially not having any background or reference of success as far as education, like it was a commitment that I promised her that if I did this, I would just work as hard as I possibly could every single day. And so anytime I wasn't putting all of my effort towards, getting straight A's in college, which I did, graduating top of my class for the University of Illinois, which I also did, working to bring home some income anytime I wasn't doing schoolwork, and then also trying to be a present father when I'm around. It was a completely different deal. I mean, my university was 50 minutes away from my house. So as far as, eating good foods, working out, all that stuff was out the window. Is about eating something that gave me enough energy and fuel to do the work that I needed to do, to have the success that I needed to have, to really honor my family and show, my wife and my family that I'm really trying to do something to put our family, into a different level than what we've ever understood or could understand.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, where were you with your weight before, and what were you eating? Was it really giving you more energy, at the end of the day? Let's kind of peel the onion a little bit here.
Yeah, that's fair. So, when I first met my wife, I was 24, 25, and I was in pretty good shape. She, you know, she had very fond reflections of that guy, but understood the trade-offs, right? So as I started, uh, I left my job at a factory that I'd worked at from the time that I was 17. And now commuting and just if the family was awake and I wasn't in class or at work, I was trying to spend time with them. But outside of that, I mean, I was just doing homework as late as I could stay up and getting up early to prepare for tests and then studying on the road, which probably isn't super safe. But it was hit a drive through and start to school. There was no balance of good food. She was working full time in the military. She was driving 35 minutes to work the other way. So it wasn't like, I had a wife that had the time to prepare and do meal prep and things like that for me. So I'd
Mhm.
started getting off the rails at that point. And when I met her, I was approximately 225 pounds. By the time I graduated college, I was somewhere in the range of probably 250 to 255. So just a few short years later, I'd packed on 30 pounds.
Mhm.
And then upon graduating, she helped me select my career path. We had taken this risk together. Fortunately, of the several firms I was interviewing with, one of them wanted her to come to the interview with, and she helped select my career path. And that career path ended up being in the financial services industry, where much like most firms, you're working for yourself. You've got to be your own best employee. So that work your face off, as much energy as you possibly can towards, ambition, put it all out there. That commitment didn't stop at the end of college like I thought it would. So it just continued. And, fast forward, 15 years, 16 years after graduating college, things had definitely ballooned into a really unhealthy position.
Yeah. And where were you at your highest peak when it came to your weight, if you don't mind me asking?
So at my very highest peak, I was at 326 pounds.
Wow. And that was at what age?
So I was 43, 42, 43.
Okay. And where are you today?
Today, I'm about 208. So
208. Woo.
feeling pretty good.
That is awesome. And I want to dive into that, but let's talk about back at where you were at 42, 43, when you were at your highest.
Yeah.
Right here you are, you've achieved, the level of success you have, building a practice, providing for your family. But at what cost did that come to you? I mean, tell us about the Todd, where you were, mentally, physically, emotionally. I know we've talked before about some of the rationalizations that you use to justify being at that weight. Tell us a little bit about that, Todd.
It was interesting. So you're right. As we talked about, it is part of the male psyche. Sacrificing yourself for your family does feel noble. But sacrificing yourself for your family is probably not the reality. Sacrificing yourself for anything is not serving anyone well because it's not putting you in a position to be at your best. And that was not something I understood. It's really interesting to get yourself to that point of mismanaged health. You've got to tell yourself a lot of lies along the way. Or you'd have to have a mental breakdown. I don't think you could
Yeah,
get
tell us
yourself to
about some of those
that
lies.
level of obesity without it. And so some of those lies were like, honey, I'm just trying to put everything I possibly can into building this up. And so, early in my career, I was just a few years in, and one of the major employers in my community started laying off people. They had never done so. I mean, people had worked there for 30 plus years, and all of a sudden, just short of when they had anticipated retiring, they're getting walking papers from this company. So, I'd sacrificed self early in my career for, college. I sacrificed myself early in my career as well to gain some professional credentials and some expertise. And then I was going to now sacrifice myself to help all these people that were, being launched into retirement, early retirement, or even having to transition to find a new career because their employer had eliminated their position. And this just continued to happen on a semi-regular basis. So while it was very helpful in building my practice, it wasn't super helpful in me navigating back to taking care of my health. It was like, it's okay, I'll defer it. I'm still young, I can handle it, I'll defer it. And so as you would imagine, I mean, you are literally taking people from a regular steady paycheck to having to live off of their portfolios and making sure that they have all their benefits outside of their employer now, and making sure that they're making smart decisions that is going to put them in a position to live the rest of their life with financial security. So it would have felt dishonorable, honestly, in my profession to put myself ahead of that.
Mhm.
But in hindsight, had I started putting myself ahead of that, I probably would have found a lot more energy and done just as much work. As we've talked about, I get more done now in 50 hours a week than I did in 80 hours a week before.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. Excuse me. And but I want to talk about, because there's the guy that's watching this. That's where you is today, where you were, emotionally. Talk about some of those things, if, as much as you're willing to share. Of course, I know how
Yeah.
personal this is. Emotionally, what were you seeing when you look at the reflection in the mirror? What were some of the things you were feeling? And where were you in terms of performance at work? Now that you have this newfound sense of energy, you're getting so much more done, as you said. But many men don't realize, and I make this argument all the time, that being out of shape and not taking care of yourself is actually costing you money. It is leaving money on the table. Tell us a little bit about that for you.
Yeah. So here are the lies. And this was probably my biggest epiphany in all the work that we did. Um, and I only had this epiphany because of the results. So I can talk how those intertwine as well, which might be helpful for some people. But
Yeah.
breaking down the, mental self-image I had of myself, it required me to rewrite the narrative inside of my brain. So one of the things I used to tell myself all the time, I actually even told my wife this a number of times, like, hey, it's good for you that I'm putting on all this weight because it's like self-defense. Like when I was in college, I was still in pretty good shape and I was still a younger man, and I would get hit on here and there. And so it was a distraction. And, while everybody appreciates attention, it wasn't something that I really wanted or needed, and still don't want or need. But it was one of those things that, like, as I get a little puffier, I'm not getting noticed as much, and it allows me to put my head down and work harder. And so, honey, this is a noble thing for you because I'm not out there in the world. You don't have to worry about me because nobody's trying to pick me up, and I'm not trying to do anything as well. So that was one of the lies. The other lies are, you know, putting my health ahead of activities with my family or something like that. Like if I've only got 5 hours in a week that I literally have is like free downtime, to take half of that and dedicate that towards working out, it just felt super selfish.
Mhm.
And what I didn't realize is that I wasn't sleeping good. I wasn't getting full rest. a lot of the other things that come along with having positive, good, balanced health, you know, had I invested more towards that earlier, I would have started having some of those benefits that would have given me more time and leverage because I could have been more focused and had more clarity. So that was another lie I would tell myself. Um, I don't know. There's just a whole basket of things. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy as you really start unpacking and going through this type of a transformation. There's a lot of work that you wouldn't expect you'd have to do.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely get into that too, because, and I've done that myself. A lot of guys think, I just wake up as just genetically fit, single digit body fat that I maintain now, even at the age of 55. But there was a time in my life where I sacrificed my health, my career, and my family, or not for family and success, being 30 pounds overweight and, hanging out with the guys playing golf and drinking beers on the golf course and having hot dogs. And I've done that. I've been there, and I know what that feels like. And I really want men to understand what you're feeling, what I feel is possible for everyone. And so when we started this journey, talk a little bit about how we met, because there are a lot of guys out there like me online, right? It's a competitive space, and I get it. But what caught your attention about our work, and what said, what, this is going to be different, and this is something I want to do?
Yeah, so we met playing golf through a good mutual friend, and it kind of struck me as pretty immediately that you were a different animal. Just looking at you, seeing the dedication that you put towards taking care of yourself and maintaining your fitness and your physique stood out because you just don't see that for people that are, you know, a little more advanced in age. I mean, I looked at you and I was like, I could tell you were a little bit older than me, but I could also tell I could learn a lot from you. And so, it piqued my curiosity there. And then as we continued to play golf, and got to know each other a little bit, I found out a little bit about what you do and why you do it and all that. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And you know, it struck me as you're just such an authentic and caring guy. And there are all those other things that are out there, and boy, have I tried a lot of things, diets and really hard things to maintain. And so some of the things that I had heard, we had talked about a couple of them, and you said, Todd, I can understand that, where someone might have said that, but not everything is the same for everybody. That may not be true for you. And so you said, hey, how about this? How about we get together sometime soon and we'll talk through that. We'll talk about your journey and where you are and what you've done, and I'll see if I can help. And so we connected like probably 2 weeks later. You came to my office. We sat down, very very open, very non. There's no pressure. It was just exploratory. And as we started talking, some of the things that you mentioned that you do and you believe in were very different than anything I'd ever heard before. The one that stood out to me that really got me to sign up was the genetic testing. And so, one of the things that you said, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was something to the effect of, Todd, if you're fueling your body in the wrong way, you've got a lot of inflammation that you don't need, and it's not serving you well. In general, and correct me if I'm chopping this up, but in general, when your body's inflamed at all times, you're never going to be able to burn fat. But if we can get all that inflammation out of your body, and you can actually follow a good workout program that fits your body type and matches your genetics, I think you're going to have a hard time not losing weight. Like the weight is just going to melt off of you. And so that was very different to me.
Yeah. Yeah, what he's referring to, for those that are watching, is, one of the things that we use in our evaluation is nutrigenomics. It's a very new and exciting component that we use in functional medicine to help customize all of our solutions, because there's nothing cookie cutter about our programs. We look at over 134 different genetic SNPs that look at everything from metabolism to digestion to food to training to recovery to hormone optimization, and what can be done to customize our solutions, because genetics may load the gun, but your lifestyle and your habits pull the trigger. And then, as we discovered in Todd's case, there were some things that he was doing that he thought he was doing beneficial for himself that were actually pulling the trigger in the direction he didn't want to go. And so by using this and combining with lab analysis, we were able to customize quite a bit of our solutions and get the results that we've done. And I want to touch on something that you said that just caught my eye as well, because, we have a vision here and it's only halftime. Because, the way that I view this is, sorry, I lost my camera there for a moment, is, Todd and I are nothing special. We're just product of choices. And what we do is help guide those choices because, I only spend about 4 to 6 hours, maybe a week total on my fitness. And the rest is just diet and nutrition and making and allocating those choices, because our vision is that where someone like me shows up to play golf with you, I'm not the exception. So this should be the standard. This should be the new normal, as we like to call it, because decline is not inevitable. And what I want to touch on for a moment that you were just talking about is that you said you had tried a lot of things before, and you were even doing some interventions when we met as well. Talk a little bit about what you tried, what worked, what didn't, and let's expand a little bit on that, because I know a lot of guys, when they come to me, I'm not usually the first one they reach out to.
Yeah, so immediately prior to working with you, I had started working with a local doctor back in my hometown. Great guy. He started the basic lab analysis. He found like, wow, your testosterone is like really low, sub 100. You're not even registering any estrogen. You're so low. So like that's a problem. Magnesium, B12, some of like the I would probably call them higher level markers. Like what you did was 30 times deeper level of analysis than that. But it was good. It was a good start. So I started that. Um, I had prior to that, I had done like Orange Theory, a local version called Red Zone for a period of time. I did CrossFit for a period of a couple of years. And what actually frustrated me about, especially about the CrossFit, is I just kept getting bigger. And that wasn't my goal. Like, uh, in hindsight, I now realize that was good in the work that we've done together. I've become more educated. And you actually told me that, like, man, you were probably going a better direction when you were doing the CrossFit than doing all the cardio. But then one of my other friends and someone who's of a position that, has the medical background had convinced me that at least 3 days a week with 30 minutes of cardio is all you have to do. Like if you're doing that and you're running your family and you're running your business and you're not dropping the ball anywhere, dude, you're running a 10 out of 10. And so I had done that for a period of years. Like even when I moved to Florida, I was still working very large work weeks. And my personal time, I'm a big person of setting my environment up for success. My personal time, where I would actually watch things that I wanted to watch, was while I was running. So I could probably run 3 to 5 days a week and probably closer to five every week because that was the time that I would take my iPad and I would be on the machine and I could watch things that I wanted to watch. But other than that, I didn't allow myself to watch TV or things like that. And so I looked forward to those types of workouts and I just continued to get heavier and bigger. And it was very frustrating to me. Like I'd started to toy around with dieting things, but most of my dieting was like, hey, I have this thing that I need to look good for. So I would crash diet and I'd get myself to what I'd set as a goal for the weight. And then all of a sudden I would have that event and like, okay, cool, I can go back to, what I was doing before. And it was very much like back and forth and back and forth. And even in working with that other doctor, he had gotten me on a semaglutide, which is a GLP-1, the
Right.
big rave these days. And we did that for a while, but it plateaued. Like I'd lost about 20 to 25 pounds and just nothing else was coming off any longer. And so, that's right about the time that I had met you. And we looked at things a little differently. And don't let me not tell the story about the plate because I need to tell the story for these people about the plate as to where I thought it was going to be impossible to work with you on the diet and side of this, but it wasn't.
Yeah. No, feel free. I mean, go ahead, and you've mentioned it, and we'll come back to some of the other things here as well. But yeah, go ahead. I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, because this was another thing that I would lie to myself. Like, okay, I'm gonna start working with Dr. Andreas, and he's going to make me change everything so radically, right? So prior to that, right about the time that we started working together. We had just opened our new office in Sarasota. We'd moved from our old office location to the new office. So I was in the middle of that, getting everything set up. I was buying a restaurant back in my hometown. There's a restaurant that's been very popular for decades, but it had fallen into disrepair and people weren't really going there anymore. And so that was kind of a passion project. And you're like, let's go. And I'm like, oh, like Heisman Trophy pose, like, hold on, Dr. Andreas, like this all sounds great, but I need some time. And you were very patient and you're like, look, dude, how about this? How about we just start by you sending me pictures of what you're eating so I can start to get a feel for it. And at this point, we'd already done the genetic test. But like I sent you a picture of what I was eating for lunch one day, and it stood out to me because it was like, all right, he's gonna like this because I am eating pretty clean. I've got a chicken breast that I grilled on the out on the grill. I had some green beans on the other side of the plate, and then I had a very small amount of barbecue sauce, Sweet Baby Ray's spicy barbecue sauce. I loved this stuff at the time, and so I sent you that picture, and I'm like, he's gonna be impressed. And you were kind of, you're like, dude, you are so close. Like that chicken breast is so good for you. Lots of protein, very healthy. It's lean. Green beans, of course, those are great. But the barbecue sauce, brother, that's your problem. Like there's a bunch of stuff in that that's creating inflammation in your body. And I remember I was like, Dr. Andreas, I would rather not even eat than not have that barbecue sauce. So like if you want me to just start fasting at all times, I will just start fasting at all times and that's what we'll do. And you're like, no, 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 slow down. Why don't you play around with spices or something and see if you can get a different flavor into the chicken breast to where you don't, feel like you need the barbecue sauce. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I don't know that I'm gonna do it long term. And you were even very much like, hey, I'm not saying you can never have barbecue sauce again. I'm just saying to go through the type of transformation you want to go through, you got to take it off the plate for a little bit. It can find its way back on there. And I'm actually happy to report that, like, after playing around with different seasonings and spices that do fit my body well, I prefer the chicken breast now more than I ever did with barbecue sauce. So, like, I don't feel like I've sacrificed anything. I actually feel like I've gained by being willing to make some of these changes.
Yeah, and let's give that a little bit of context too with the barbecue sauce, because there's the common things that I see in most men that we're dealing with a lot. I call them really the core five, and because we focus on this foundational approach to health and fitness, because at the end of the day, health is really not that complicated, right? It's insulin resistance, it's chronic low grade inflammation, it's excess body fat, right? It's poor gut health, and the fifth one is lack of physical fitness and conditioning. And you focus on those five things, it's amazing how lab values, how a man can feel, can perform, can change. And something as benign seemingly as barbecue sauce, when we tend to add that on, can be in upwards of an additional 100 to 300 calories, depending on what you're doing. And you got a lot of sugar typically added that just fuels triglyceride levels, insulin resistance, and inflammation, and so forth. So it's what I call walking the fence. A lot of the guys will think I'm doing the right thing, and how much of the stuff can I still eat and still get the result? And it's a battle that most men will never win. And it's why a lot of guys struggle. They think that they're doing something good. Something as benign as oatmeal. Oatmeal is loaded with phytic acid. Phytic acid robs the body of zinc. Zinc is a key precursor in testosterone production. And so, and immunity as well as other functions. And so, one of the things that I want to ask you about that you had just mentioned too, that really caught my ear, because a lot of guys will say, I just don't have the time right now. They wait for the perfect moment, right? And look, if guys that are familiar with my story know that, I've not had an easy journey. I've overcome significant challenges in my life that I share on my website. I won't go into them now because this is not about me. This is about Todd here. But when we started working, like you mentioned, you're not only managing and running a very successful wealth practice, but you're also then decided to embark on investing and buying this restaurant at the same time. Yet, how were you able to put this into your life using the peak performance protocol? And how was that process for you? And how easy or was difficult was it for you to really implement this into your life while you're doing all this at the same time?
Yeah, it was an interesting time for sure. But I also knew that I had mismanaged things for long enough, and I had committed to getting healthier, and just the timing was right, right? Like I was mentally ready for a change. I didn't know I was embarking on such a massive project with the restaurant that there was a lot of interesting things that happened there. But thankfully, everything is settled and going well now. But on the health side thing, there were a lot of times that I wanted to quit. And, and I followed the peak performance protocol almost 100% to a T, if I'm being completely honest with you. I didn't do the apple cider vinegar fasting. Like that part of it was like I had to draw the line somewhere, but I did everything else. Like it's maybe it's me, maybe it's my genetics, but apple cider vinegar is probably the worst tasting thing that I can possibly put into my mouth. But I followed all the rest to a T, and I couldn't believe how quickly things started to change. Like doing P90X and Rob Wolf's the carnivore diet, right? The and another thing that actually kind of came out of it too was what you're drinking as well. That's a big part of it. And so, if I'm being totally honest, sometime around COVID, I had COVID changed the world in such a way that it changed people's routines, right? And I had long since a couple of days a week enjoyed like the social cocktail or even going home after a long day of work and flipping some sports on and having a cocktail at dinner and then having a cocktail after dinner to go to bed. But when COVID came around, like people, you're working from home, you can get through meetings quicker, and I might find myself wrapped up with everything I had to do for work by 3:30, 4. And so that barrier wasn't there anymore. I might go mix up a cocktail at like 4 and have one or two, and then have one at dinner and have another one before I go to bed. And just a couple of extra cocktails a couple days a week, like that further perpetuated the problem. And I know I didn't tell you all that before we started in the program, but that was another lie I was telling myself was like, oh, it's going to be really hard to change that routine. Like, because I really enjoyed it. It wasn't serving me well. It wasn't helping me in my life. It wasn't really doing anything for me, but it was something that I didn't want to let go. And you were even, kind enough to say, hey, you don't have to quit drinking for forever, but you probably need to quit drinking for a while to get into this program and really start to see the results that you want.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that alcohol in a second, but I want to go back to something that you said to give a little bit of context because apple cider vinegar is not necessarily a part of the peak performance protocol. We will
Okay.
use it as a component, in particular as it comes to intermittent fasting, because it's a wonderful way to help stave off appetite. It helps to promote alkalinity in the body. It helps to support lymphatic drainage and flow and immunity as well. And I will do it, just a teaspoon and mix it with some electrolyte water as well and give it some flavor because it is horrible tasting. But I want to make sure that guys understand that it's just one way that we'll use it as an intermittent fasting drink to help stave off appetite with black coffee or something else as well, something separate. But let's get back now to the alcohol component because I know that was a big part of real life, and a lot of guys are afraid, oh my God, I'm going to be giving up this alcohol. And what I'm trying to get guys to realize is what's on the other side of feeling and looking and performing at your very best. And like you said, it's not a forever thing. Once I get guys, like yourself to where they are, I show guys, hey, here's how you can reintroduce other things back into your life without blowing your health and your biomarkers in your labs out of the water in the process. But what we find, and I think what you found, is that what you thought you were giving up that you just couldn't live without, all of a sudden you just don't have that desire for anymore because it typically then starts to make you feel like crap again when you start to reintroduce and when you start becoming what we call a peak performance man. And I find it so interesting socially how when the healthy guy shows up at an event and party and doesn't want to drink, they're the odd one out. Talk a little bit about that if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. With what I do, there are many, many evenings, many conferences that I go to where, just drinking is part of the social construct. And uh, it really is like I actually can think of times in my life where I've like, what are you doing? Drinking a bottle of water? Like, Hey, we're having cocktails. What do you want? Let me get you something, right? Like it's just like a social, it's a social expectation in today's professional society. If you're at that type of event, that you're having cocktails. And so that was one of the things I came to you about. Like, okay, like if I'm giving up drinking, I'm giving it up altogether for a period of time. What about this? Like, how am I going to miss out at these types of functions? And you're like, dude, I go to those types of functions all the time. I get like soda water with a splash of cranberry, and nobody knows the wiser. And I'm like, huh, interesting. I'll try it. So I did it. And then I had the first one, I had the second one, I had the third one. And, a couple hours have gone by, and I'm like, man, like, I don't really feel anything. Why am I not feeling anything? And it's like, oh yeah, there's no alcohol in my drink. And so like I didn't even really realize there was no alcohol in my drink. It didn't really affect the taste much. Bartenders don't care because you're tipping them anyway. And so like I would get done with the function and then I would leave the function and head home. And I felt like I could go run 5 miles or, play a game of basketball or do a workout or do something with my kids. It was very life-changing to instead of go home and change into your pajamas, maybe sit down, maybe even have another drink with the wife before you go to bed. And it just changing the cycle, changing the behavior and changing your routines, it did. It created a whole lot more energy on the other side of that.
Yeah. And that's what I want guys to realize. Everybody has that potential inside them. And you touch on something that I want to ask you, and that is in regards to your family, with your children and what your wife, and of course it's personal, whatever you're willing to share. But what did your kids notice in you? And I mean, obviously you lost a whole half a Todd almost here, right? What was the impact on your children, what they saw, what they noticed, your wife, that you're willing to share?
Well, I'll tell you, with the kids was pretty easy. Like my youngest daughter, Anna, who's 16, she's like, man, I've never seen Skinny Dad before. This is weird, right? And like, I'll tell you when I showed her like my whole program and I was telling her what journey I was going through, like, are you gonna look like Dr. Andreas? Because you've got a photo of yourself in there. And I was like, I don't think so, but who knows? Like, if I stay with this thing for a long time, it's possible, I guess.
It
She's
is
like, he looks
possible.
scary.
More
So,
than possible.
it is, yeah. I didn't think it was possible at the time. We'll have to talk about like how things came off and how those realizations changed. But so, my kids couldn't be more proud. My daughter is, as she's got boys that are interested in her, she kind of prepares them. Hey, my dad's a big guy, and he's pretty protective of me. So I'm just letting you know that in case it's uncomfortable when you come to hang out around us. And it's really interesting. These younger kids, they come over to court my daughter and like, you clearly work out, Mr. Parker. Like, yeah, I work out quite a bit. but so that's the experience with the kids. With the wife, the whole notion of it being noble, like, boy, I have a patient wife. Not in general, but just patient with me, thankfully. It requires it. But I would tell her, hey, this is good for you that I'm carrying all this weight. And now since I've lost all this weight, our relationship is just so much better. And it's not that like it's not that our interactions have really changed a great deal and our conversations have changed a great deal. It's the way I feel about myself creates a different interaction between the two of us. And the fact that I've decided to try to get my health right as a bit of a, hey, you know, she's put her counterpoint in me and wants me to be there till her dying day. And I've put my counterpoint in her and I want the same thing. And she's always taken great care of her health. I had not. She understood, at least, let me get away with the excuses of why I was doing what I was doing. But since dedicating myself to this, she was like, man, there's nobody in the entire world that could do all the things that you do. You are the most incredible man in the world. And she's so grateful and so appreciative of all the things that I'm doing, especially that I'm taking care of myself to be around for our kids and our grandkids and all the things for the next several decades to come.
Yeah, and that's such an important point because I do this work because it's a passion that I want men to understand is that far too many men are overweight, out of shape, misdiagnosed, over medicated, and as a result, quite frankly, are just dying far too young. And I just don't want men to be one of them. My father-in-law ignored his diabetes, ignored his insulin resistance, ignored his inflammation, and then started having his first cardiovascular event in his late 50s. And then ended up in a long-term care facility. My wife ended up becoming his guardian conservator because he couldn't take care of himself anymore, and then passed away with renal failure in his late 60s. It's far too young. And so many men are on this path, and I just don't want guys to be there. It's just not necessary. And I appreciate you sharing this story because here's the thing that men don't realize is they don't know what they prevent when they take control of their health today. Procrastination is the thief of life, health, and performance. And it's a silent thief. It's relentless. And you've nipped that in the bud in so many ways. And I'm so proud of the work that you've done. And it's why I do this work. And so you've done so much for yourself and your family, and you've now shared this with others that you work with. You have referred me so many men, and who've even referred their wives now to me as well. And I know we don't want to share any names, but it's not just you that has received these results. Even some with elite fitness have received benefits from this performance protocol. What are you willing to share from the results that you've heard from the clients that you've referred to me as well, without, of course, sharing their names?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And I'll even reframe what you just said because you kept saying I did all this. We did all of this. You have to take some credit here, my friend, because there were some times that the program was really tough. And, I never really waved the flag, but, you would nudge here and there where I needed it. You were so supportive and so patient. Like, I really appreciate the way that you engage people in your program. And it makes it very easy to refer. In fact, uh, you know, I work in an industry where we rely very heavily on our existing clients to help us determine who other people are in their universe that may benefit from a relationship with us. And so prior to being in this industry, referrals were something scary to me. Like, oh man, there's what if they reject that person and that reflects badly on me? Like there's a whole concern around referring someone. And when you go through a program like this and you experience a type of transformation, everybody around you, like you mentioned in the pre-log here, everybody around you takes notice. Like I'm very active in my country club. I have a lot of friends here. I'm very active in my country club back home in Decatur, Illinois. And I have a lot of friends there and everybody has taken notice. And so, you know, when you go through something that changes not just, the health aspect of your life, but every aspect of your life, because the health ties into everything. You want to help others. Like good people want to help other people. And so as my friends would ask me, I would say, hey, these are some of the things that I've done. And I would be pretty transparent with them in one-on-one conversations. But these are some of the things that I did with Dr. Andreas that I've never heard anywhere else. And so some people that are at very peak levels of fitness had heard about some of that stuff. And they're like, wow, I've heard of it, but I don't know anybody that does that. I'd love to meet him. So I've sent them your way and got the two of you connected. And I think 100% of the people that I've referred have started working with you, which is also a pretty good batting average if you look at it from a baseball
That is
perspective.
true. Yeah,
Uh,
very impressive. Thank you.
yes, and they all have said, wow, thank you for introducing us as well. So it looks good on me. It really does. It's a good feeling to put people in a position to meet someone who makes a difference for them. And so it's very easy to do. So yeah, my friends that are at peak levels of fitness, three of them even I know are now working with you, and then a handful of friends that were at less than peak levels of fitness are also working with you and achieving the type of results that I've talked about.
Yeah, well, it's the greatest compliment any business owner can receive, and I'm truly grateful. And I want to publicly say thank you again. And it's been an honor. And what he's saying is so true. You know, we had the opportunity. You invited me to come play out at your member guest golf tournament, and I was just sitting there smiling from ear to ear as all the members were coming up to you, going, "Todd, what happened to you? You look like a whole new man." And it was definitely fun to watch and observe. And as we close this out, I want to give you, one final thought. What idea or suggestion or advice do you have for the man that's out there watching this, that's wanting the results that you have now obtained? What would you like to leave them with as we close this out?
Well, I've got like a thing that kind of ties together, and it remind me of it as you said that. People are coming up and saying I look like a whole new Todd. I feel like a whole new Todd, and I am a whole new Todd. Like my mental self-image of myself is fundamentally different than it was 1 year ago. Like we started working together in mid-February of 2025. It is now the first week of January in 2026. So less than a full year of results. I'd set my first goal with the biggest I could possibly imagine in losing in weight. So I'm someone who's a visual goal setter. I've got a chart in my and I've got my vision and I've got all the things in my closet. I've got a chart. And I set the chart up when we started working together. I was like, man, the biggest goal that I could possibly imagine over the course of the year would be to lose 50 pounds. That's a lot of weight. Like that's a tremendous amount of weight to lose in a short period of time. So I'm like, if this thing works so perfectly that I could lose 50 pounds in a year, like, holy cow, be mind blown. So we started in mid February. And I will tell you, like, the 4th of July, I had run out of room on that chart. I was so blown away. I couldn't even imagine, like, that being a possibility. I'd had to buy some new clothes, and that trend would continue because once I finished that, I was like, well, heck, this wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. I've got the momentum. I don't even miss the lifestyle I was leading before. In fact, I prefer the new lifestyle. So it was easy. It was very easy. So I set the next goal. Okay, the most I think I could probably lose at this point. So now I'm down to 250, right? Because I was 326 at peak. I got to about 300 before we started working together. And right about the time we were working together, I was fluctuating between 290 if I was on a crash diet and going up to like 305 if I was being a heathen. And so, now I'm at 250 and I'm like, okay, 225. That's where I met my wife. I was pretty shredded. I looked great. And so I set that goal. And by the time I get like mid September, I'm out of room on that goal as well. And so I'm like, well, crud, what's the most I could probably have to lose left? I grab another 10 pounds and I'm through that as well. Like I got through that as well. And so I'm at a weight now on the same frame that I had as an adult male back whenever I was younger, but I am fitter. I am healthier. I have more endurance. I have more energy. I look better without a shirt on than what I did before. And I'm still going with it. I don't know if I'm going to keep losing weight or not. I mean, I got a little bit I can kind of pinch, but I think it's more skin than anything else. I'm starting to see a lot of definition everywhere. I was looking at my legs in the gym today and I'm like, man, that kind of looks like the cover of a Men's Health magazine. Like I'm seeing things in myself that I'd never seen before. And and as I walk through my house, all right, so this is something that I've shared with you as well. So I walk through my house and all the old photos, lifetime of photos that I've made with my family and my wife and everything. And I joked around with my wife not that long ago. I'm like, hey, you're gonna have to get all these pictures of your ex out of here because I don't know who that guy is. That's not me, right? It's so
I love
we
that.
gotta do something about this. Because when I look at that person, I know it's me just because like I remember being there in the photo and have the memory, but I'm like, that's not the guy that's in that photo because I'm the guy that's in that photo and that guy's not me. So it's just, it's so life changing, so transformational to have this type of a benefit and journey. Um, and I'll tell you too, they've got the commercials with Frank Thomas and Doug Flutie, right? And she'll like it
Oh
too.
yeah.
All
Yep.
right. So I will tell you this type of transformation. has brought a whole new level of romance into my relationship. Like, I'm getting a lot of attention everywhere. So like that's part of it too. And I'm fine with it. Like the distractions of getting attention when I was younger and like being worried about that, like I'm not worried about that at all anymore. Like I'm getting the attention of the one that I wanted the attention from now. And it's so good. And it's just incredible, Dr. Andreas. So anybody that's out there that any part of this resonates with, like I could not encourage you enough to go talk to Dr. Andreas. If you're a social friend of mine, I know we're planning to put this out onto social media. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Ask me any questions you want. I'm happy to help with any information that you want. And whether it's Dr. Andreas or any of the other things that I've tried, I can answer any questions from my perspective. I'll be full open kimono for you if I can. Uh, but really, if this resonates with you, boy, I'd encourage you to connect because what's on the other side of what probably would feel like a lot of work mentally is not a lot of work. It's actually pretty darn easy once you get in and get a couple weeks in.
Yeah, well, I can't thank you enough, Todd. I mean, it's been a privilege to be able to work with you. You've executed the blueprint, and I'm glad you've seen the value and transformed in every single way. And I know our friendship continues well beyond this, and you can take your goals as far as you want. And we see that all too often with guys. They set the bar here because it's safe. When all of a sudden they start to realize that their goals start to elevate. I just want to give you maybe one final concluding thought. What would you say to the guy who's worried about changing their life, who's feeling like they can't do this, they're feeling like they're too busy? What's one word of advice that you would leave them with as we close this out?
The main piece of advice is just pure commitment. Um, it's you're going to commit to this if you're going to do it all in and stay all in. You're going to have bad days. There were days that man, I really don't feel like doing this, but it was a different level of don't feel like doing this than it had ever been before because of the compounding energy gains that you get every time. It was more like I can recall being a bigger guy doing CrossFit, for example. And I remember like trying to sit down on the toilet to, do your daily work. And I couldn't stand back up off the toilet. I was so sore that like it was painful to try to do that type of transformation. And you build people into something that's sustainable. Like the diet changes are sustainable and they're permanent. Like I now, so I was not someone who enjoyed yogurt. I love Greek yogurt. It's very high protein. It's very good for your gut. Throw some granola in there with some high protein. It is awesome. It's tasty. I'll throw some blueberries in there. Like some of the things that you will find in the program become your new favorite things. Like I like that as much as I like a fillet, which I love fillets, right?
Nothing
So
wrong
so
with a
some
good
of those
fillet.
things, the benefits that come out of this are like finding new things that you love, and it just gets easier and easier and easier. So all these other things that I tried before were like to try to get to a goal, but it was never to like sustain a goal. It was always like, all right, I'm gonna get to the goal, and then cool, I made it, and now what? Right? This is something that becomes a transformational change that is sustainable and permanent. Like it would almost be like finding a religion that you like have a deep sense of conviction and belief and faith in, and then abandoning it for no reason. But you also get all these other great things out of it. So I will tell you, come in, be committed, do the hard things. You should probably do the apple cider vinegar, like Dr. Andreas tells you should do.
It's suggested, not required.
but but no, it is incredible, and I could not recommend it enough to anybody.
Well, thank you so much, Todd. I know you're a very busy man. I appreciate you taking time out of the day and sharing your story. And I look forward to continued success in this journey with you because there is no finish line to health. And I just want to sincerely express my gratitude. It's been a privilege to working with you and still be working with you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate you, brother.
If you would like to learn more about our peak performance protocol or join our world-class community of men in the halftime arena where we refuse to accept decline as the new normal and reject the narrative and become a peak performance man, then visit itsonlyhalftime.com. And remember, regardless of the score in your life, your second half can be your best half when you declare it's only halftime.